What's going on, everybody? This is James from LaxJobs.us, and you're listening to the LaxJobs Podcast, where we sit down with lacrosse coaches and industry professionals to chat about their journeys in the game and the stories they've made along the way. I'm fired up for the first episode of the podcast, where we sit down with Brian Duncan, my boss, the head men's lacrosse coach at Flagler College here in St. Augustine, Florida. Coach Duncan's a UMBC graduate who went on to be an assistant coach and then later the head coach at Essex Community College, where he was part of a 19-0 season and winning a NJCAA national championship. After leaving Essex, he went on to help start the Jacksonville University men's lacrosse program, then made stops at Florida Tech, and with the Florida launch of the MLL, en route to St. Augustine, where he launched the Flagler College men's lacrosse program. Fired up for our conversation, and I hope you guys enjoy head coach Brian Duncan of Flagler College. Today.
Doing great, James. How you doing, buddy?
Fantastic. Thanks for being the first and hopefully not the last guest on this little project we're working on. Obviously trying to get LaxJobs a little more multidimensional than one-dimensional here. And I thought, who's the best person to go after first? And I was like, man, it's got to be the boss man. So welcome. Brian Duncan here is the head men's lacrosse coach at Flagler College, third year's varsity program, and my boss, and one of the coolest dudes in the game, and a really interesting story that I wanted to, get involved here and let him share some of his thoughts. So, Coach, again, thanks for your time. How did this whole thing start? Let's give us a little bit of background on how you got into lacrosse and then how you got into coaching.
It's funny. I came from West Virginia, so I knew nothing about the game of lacrosse. Moved in with my dad in about fifth grade up in New York. Maybe saw a stick or two around West Point, where my mom worked as an AG and my dad was in Newburgh. And we moved down to Maryland, and we moved into a neighborhood that, I had no idea that the neighborhood was full of lacrosse players, but I went to football practice as a ninth grader, and I ran a punt back, and as I'm running down the field to go into the end zone, I see a coach running down the sideline almost next to me. And when we got to the end zone, he asked me what I was doing in the spring, and I said, well, I don't play baseball, so really probably nothing. He said, well, you're going to play lacrosse. So he had me come into his office after practice, and he gave me a lacrosse stick. And when I saw the lacrosse stick, I said, wait a minute, I've seen that in a bunch of my buddies', garages around my neighborhood. Ends up that a lot of those kids were going to Calvert Hall and St. Paul's, and I had no idea, what all that meant at the time. And so I started playing lacrosse as a JV lacrosse player, and I fell in love with just the idea of competing, at something that I didn't know much about. And it was intimidating at first. I struggled, with passing and catching, and I was good at clamping the ball and going and picking up a ground ball and throwing it to a friend. And that's kind of how it started. And then, I started listening to the coaches tell me to get on a wall and get reps in that way. And that's all we were told. And so I did that, and we went and shot on the goal, and a couple of my friends and I started, kind of passionately trying to become good at it. And by the time we were done my senior year, I had some offers to go play different Division III places, and I had an invite to West Point. I had an invite with Jack Emmer, actually, who comes around our program now, and he was the guy that asked me to come up for an overnight. And unfortunately, they had a white glove inspection that next morning, and I decided that probably wasn't where I wanted to go to college and at that time in my life. So I said no, and I didn't go to West Point. And then Towson kind of invited me out, and I went through that process, and they told me I wasn't good enough. And I said, okay. And so kind of kept moving forward. And about 2 weeks later, I got a phone call from UMBC and head coach Dick Watts. And he said he had gotten a phone call from a real good friend. And Frank Mezzanotte was the head coach at Edgewood High School and had won state championships and was very well known around the lacrosse community. And with that phone call, I was able to get a tuition scholarship go to UMBC, and that's kind of the starting point. After college, I had a pretty good little career at UMBC. I had fun. I was kind of one of the gritty players. I was a ground ball guy. I was a face off guy for a couple years, and then I faced off and ran with the first midfield my junior and senior year, and still number 9 in ground balls at UMBC over all these years, and I'm proud of that. I think
Let's go.
That's why I asked the guys to play the way we play, and that's to be a little gritty and try to get down and get dirty and do something nice for your teammate. And so that's kind of our style, and it kind of came from the way I was raised through the game and the way I enjoyed playing. So, so UMBC got done, and I stepped out of the college game as a guy trying to get into the world, and I thought I wanted to be in business, and so I went into some different opportunities that as time went on, I recognized that wasn't exactly what I wanted to chase and follow, and so I had some friends of mine ask me to coach a 7th and 8th grade travel lacrosse team, and it was somewhere around 94, 93, somewhere in that range. It was right after college, and it was a good friend of mine it was a teammate of mine at Little Abner's named Dave Casemeyer, and Dave was a well-known lacrosse player around Baltimore, and he kind of took me under his wing and taught me a lot about the game just from coaching. And I realized that I had struggles with taking my helmet off and still being a leader. When I had my helmet on, it was easy. It was an easy job to be a leader on the field with a helmet on. And for some reason, I struggled with taking that helmet off and still being confident in who I was in front of people. And so that 7th and 8th grade adventure, we won a state championship, in that travel squad, and we had been to a couple of them, and at that point I started realizing I really enjoyed, coaching and the X's and the O's and the Jimmies and the Joes, and I just started understanding that this is kind of a direction I was leaning, and still working, still doing my normal, job stuff, and eventually, I went back to my high school after 4 years of being with the 7th and 8th graders, and it's a cool story. My sister ended up marrying one of my favorite 7th and 8th grade lacrosse players named Grant Halford, and he was a St. Paul's guy, and he was one of my favorite guys of all time, just a beast as a young guy in 7th grade, and turns out, I don't know how many years later, 15 years later, that he ends up meeting my sister, and they end up married and have 3 kids now, and it's a pretty cool story. But
I didn't know that. That's wild.
So it's lacrosse is neat how it ties together and networks together, and it was just it was pretty cool to see him in my life again, a long time later.
Sure.
And so we kind of went from the 7th and 8th grade type thing. I went back to my high school for a year and coached with my former coach, who actually introduced the game to me, as Carl Greenberg, back at C. Milne Wright High School. And so when I got done with, kind of going a year with that, I went back the second year. There was a coaching change, and some of the responsibilities that they wanted me to do, I decided that I wanted to do more. And I found out that day driving home that Essex Community College was looking for an assistant coach. And,
Wow.
Coach Tim Pools was a guy I knew. He had recruited me to Essex early on before I went to UMBC. And my best friend at the time, Gary Miller, went to Essex, and it was because he was a couple points away from getting into UMBC, and it didn't work out. And so he went to Essex and ended up with a full ride to Loyola, and a bunch of other guys that I had known over the years had that same effect. And so when I looked at this opportunity, I said, wow, this is cool. I can go and become like a second chance person to help some of these guys out of Baltimore, or even around the country. Eventually is what I ended up recruiting, was around the country. And anyways, Tim gave me the job and asked me if I could recruit, and I'd never recruited a person in my life. I told him I was the best recruiter in the country, and somehow I got a little lucky and started landing some pretty good lacrosse players over, the next 2-3 years, and we, went to a national championship in '99, my first year. Played against Nicky Polanco, who was a world team defenseman, and the legend Richie Speckman, who was, the coach at Nassau and has 20 plus national championships. It got me. when I stood in that national championship game that year, and it was a 7-4 game, and we're playing against some really, really high-end lacrosse players, that whole picture grabbed me, and I enjoyed the competition of it. And so I stayed on there, and about 5 years into our adventure, Coach Pools had moved over to a different position, and I was asked to be the head coach, and we went 19-0 and won a national championship in 2004. It's really cool. This year's the 20-year reunion that we're going to have on April 13th when we have a weekend off. I'm heading up to Baltimore with my wife, and we're going to go to an event, and it's to have the whole 20-year reunion with the boys that won the national championship. So that's going to be a special time. It's going to be a special time up in Baltimore.
Oh, I believe it. So that was your first year as the head coach at Essex?
Correct. And,
man, you're done for then.
You're a coach for life. Problem. And that was kind of the problem. It was a 19-0 season. A lot of the adversity that we faced, we were able to overcome. But it was an incredible year for me as an individual and as a person, and it grabbed me into the coaching fabric of this is what I want to do. So I stayed, at Essex until 2009. During the time period of 99 to 2009, we went to 9 out of 11 Final Fours, and we went to 6 national championship games. We won one. It was a very tough process to win a national championship. You play on a Saturday, then you play on a Sunday, and usually we were playing the top 2 seeds back-to-back days. Tough for us when we didn't have quite the depth that some of the New York teams had. But we were able to pull it off in 2004. We went back in 2005, and we lost to Brett Queener. Brett was a heck of a player, and he stole the show in the second half. And, I always love running into Brett. He's a great guy, and but he stole one from us, and so I just have to live with it. But we got one from them the year before, so it was even. It was 1-1 with Herkimer in those 2 years. But yeah, so I stayed till 2009. My last game I ever played, we played Nassau in the Final Four, and we lost up at Herkimer, and it was kind of a memorable day. I remember it was a lot of pain, I was leaving to go to, JU the next year. That summer I decided to move to Florida, and that was the summer of 2009 going into 2010 season. And I helped Coach Kerwick, build JU and coach JU. And, that was a whole nother adventure. We packed up a U-Haul and came down here with not a lot of money, and, just decided this is what I was going to do for a future, and came down and helped Coach Kerwick as an assistant coach. And I ran the defense there. And so the first 2 years, I think we won 6 games the first year, and we beat teams like, Denver in overtime. That was our first victory ever at JU. And we beat them in triple overtime, I believe. And Denver went to the playoffs that year. We beat Mount St. Mary's that year, and they went to the playoffs that year. We beat Rutgers, and we beat Providence, and beat Sacred Heart. It was a neat year, and we had one scholarship to work with at JU. So it was pretty cool to see our team do what they did with what we had to work with. And, facilities at JU weren't where they are today. And
sure.
It was a cool journey, and we accomplished a lot together, Coach Kerwick and I. And unfortunately in 2012, when Coach Kerwick left, I came up short getting the head coaching job there. And I was kind of in love with the weather and the area. And I kind of had met a lot of people in the community that kind of drew me to stay. And I started, deciding just to kind of work on youth lacrosse. I started working with the Police Athletic League here in St. Augustine. I worked with, Creeks, Youth League, and I worked with, PV at times with their Riptide, and came down here and helped, Brian Jones, start up the Lions. And we really try to support that, as much as we can today. So it just turned into, going out in the community and kind of giving more than I can take. And I just decided that was going to be the motto of our team, was give more than you take, as I went through life, and it worked for me. now we have a lot of support in the community based on a lot of time that I spent. I've had a lot of families come back and say thank you in a lot of ways. And I think that's what the strength of this program today is the community belief, the community backing. We have local guys that I raised in the Police Athletic League on our team, which, that we've recruited and kept in town. And that's been a pretty neat, part of our program. It gives it a little stability. It gives it a little credibility for guys that are coming in from all over the country to be around guys that have, known me and some of our staff for a lot longer. So that's been a benefit, I think, of recruiting some of the local guys. And it's amazing how, they've been successful in their venture, with us. So that's kind of the journey that's brought me to here. When I finally got here, it was about 7 or 8 years after I had left JU, and I had gone down to Florida Tech in 2015 and realized this was exactly what I wanted to do. We went 12-4. We went to the Sunshine State Championship against Tampa and lost by a few, and I knew it was what I wanted to do. And I had a friend up here that was running a lacrosse store, and he, Rob Carson, and he called me and said, hey, Flagler wants to start a lacrosse, program at the Division II level at some point. They got a club team. They want to hire a club coach. Would you be interested? And I said, Rob, I'm not sure I can do that. I mean, that's coaching suicide if it doesn't come out the way that we're, planning it for it to go to be a Division II team. And I said, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. So I started meeting with some people here at Flagler, and I was able to get a meeting with the president, and we were able to talk some things out and get to an agreement on how to stay here and be a part of Flagler College and run the club program. And I just started working, man. And we raised the money for the program every year. We put helmets and jerseys and practice gear on these guys, and we ran practices, whether it was 5 guys or 10 guys or 8 guys or 20 guys. You would have 16 or 17 show up at the games that we'd get scheduled, and we just kept battling until the very end when they finally announced that they were going to go NCAA after 5 years. And the 6th year, we were able to bring in 29 guys that had a desire to possibly play at the Division II level. And we brought in some coaches like yourself and Ephraim and Coach King, and we coached them up, and we ran them through different things. And by the end, we were able to pull off a pretty big victory against University of Florida. And that was the last club game we ever had here at Flagler College. And that was a neat moment for all the work that we had put in and the time that we had spent. And, there was times where I wasn't sure it was going to work. And, luckily I have a beautiful wife that believes in me as a coach. And that's what she met when she met me, was a coach. And she just kept standing behind me. And when the times came tight and tough, she kept kicking me out the door and telling me to go find a field. And I kept doing it. And it led to this. And that's a little emotional for me to talk about, but
sure,
here we are, and it's year 3. And it's been a heck of a journey. It's been hard. I scheduled hard for a reason. I wanted our guys to have to understand what it was going to take to be a champion. And we talk about that every day, about being a champion. We don't say we are champions. We talk about being a champion. And it's one of the things that we break to with our huddles is act like a champion daily. Don't be somebody that's a fake. And our guys have really bought into it. And I love where this program is. I enjoy the company, through our coaching staff, through the players, through the parents. We just have a really cool community, and the administration here has been very supportive. Judd Damon, our athletic director, has given me the tools that I need to help build a program. I mean, it's never perfect, but I've never been anywhere where things are perfect. So things
sure,
are
yep.
good, and we have as much as anybody else has to keep improving them to where we are.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's been wild. I feel like I've been here since the start because of just the timing of it, right? The last year club going to varsity. And then what a lot of people don't know is the years and years before that you were here on your own for the most part, putting everything in motion and willing this program into existence. One of many reasons why I look up to you so much is, you've done a pretty good job over your career, pretty good, a phenomenal job over your career of, staring down adversity, getting through it, getting past it, and then coming out better on the other side. And I think that's one reason why you're such a phenomenal coach, especially at a new program, is like, hey, just getting out of bed's half the battle, and, put your head down, do the work, good things will happen. So it's been cool. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here, a part of this staff and a part of this, launch into whatever it is we're doing right now, building a program.
It's funny that you just said launch, because I was just thinking to myself, one of the saving graces, I think, for this program, and this is real, Tom Mariano called me, and I think it was the December of, I believe it was 2016, and it was going into the summer of 2017, and he asked me if I would be willing to be his offensive coordinator for the Florida Launch, which was a pro MLL team, and I said yes. And I was nervous. I was scared. I hadn't been coaching in a competitive environment for a few years, so it was a nerve-wracking, step for me. But I decided to go ahead and risk it and go for it. And I ended up really connecting with some of the best players in the world and really creating a great relationship and just learning what competition was again. And it was valuable to me. And that call from, Coach Mariano, it really gave me that next boost of energy to get through those years that were very lean and tough to get through. But I had a vision, man. I had a dream, and I wanted this badly. And I'm grateful.
Heck yeah.
I'm grateful for people believing that I could do it. And one of those people that had to take a hard, look at it was our athletic director, when he's looking at a guy that's coaching a club team and, where have you been lately? What have you done lately type mindset. I'm sure an athletic director has, for him to take his chance on me meant a lot. And so I try to live up to, what he expects from us. And I think our team wants to live up to what his expectations are of this athletic program, and sportsmanship's very important to him, and it's very important to our team. And I like the way our team handles adversity. I like the way we get after it. We're as tough and gritty as anybody out there, but they do it in a way that's pretty classy, and I'm proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's trickle down effect from the leader, right? And it's been really cool to see. Really quick though, I want to talk about the launch for a second. So you kind of, you're at JU, and then, not quite coaching at that level for a few years, get the call to go to the MLL, the OC. I know the answer already, but just like, what are a few of the names of the guys that were on that offense that you're going out there to be an OC for the first time, and essentially your professional career?
Well, Chaz Woodson was the ex-attackman that we had in place, who was a legend and one of the greatest guys, and he's doing a phenomenal job of trying to work at the Hampton University, lacrosse program there and build that. That was one of the guys we dealt with, and we drafted Dylan Malloy. We had Kieran McCardle. So it was a pretty neat attack that I got to kind of work with right away. And then, we drafted Ryan Drenner that first year. So drafted Drenner, and he came in, and it was awesome. I think it was the first or second game. We were late in a game with the New York Lizards, and there was some really good defensemen on the field, but there was one guy that was older, and I'm not going to use names because I would never do that. But, I saw that, the three guys up top were going to get the 1, 2, and 3. And so as we went into the field and I saw that Drenner was getting the 4 on the field, I told Drenner to go, immediately off the end line and drive up the left hash. And he did. He came right off the hard dodge and ran past the guy that was covering and was an older defenseman. And he ran up the hash and then stuck it up in the top right corner, running up the hash, and, got us a win. Or either tied it and we got the win in overtime, or that was the winner. I can't remember exactly, but I think it was the game winner with like a few seconds left. And so that was neat getting Drenner onto the team. And I'd always known Ryan through, Westminster and, kind of watching Maryland lacrosse players. So it was kind of cool to have him on the team. Stephen Brooks was up in the midfield. Was one of our big guys up in the midfield. And I mean, he's a legend. So I really enjoyed, the way he was, to be such a legend. He was very humble, and I consider him one of the really good guys of lacrosse. And, if there was a coach that I would want my son to go play for, I'd be, looking at Coach Brooks. I mean, that's the kind of person he is, not just a great lacrosse player, but he was a great person. But yeah, there was just a ton of great lacrosse players. We drafted Sergio Salcido out of Florida that year, and he got a lot of good reps with us. And, Mariano's, Nick Mariano out of Syracuse, we picked up that year as well. And he really turned into a great player for us. So there's just so many to name. It would be tough to name them all.
Durkin, for sure.
Tucker Durkin on defense was a huge, that was a legend out of Division I at Hopkins, and he's another one of those guys that if you're going to pick a guy to have your kid go play for, Durkin would be that guy. So I thought I was really lucky to be around not only great lacrosse players, but these guys ended up being great people, and I enjoyed that part of it. That was probably the awesome part of it, just having that network of really good people.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's cool. I remember, this year's the OC at Flagler, that first practice being, a little nervous, taking over and to some extent what we're doing down there, and just to think back to a young Dunk going out there with those guys to coach after a few years coaching, kind of on a lower level. I'd probably puke before the first practice there.
It was interesting. We went down to tryouts and with the tryouts was good because that was a bigger number of guys in the same, kind of drills, and you get to kind of just sit back and watch and learn. And, I think the thing that I remember the most about my first practice was listening to the net when the guys were shooting, and just the sound that was happening to the net was different. And every one of them, it wasn't just, your top guy or two sniping a corner, it was every guy was just so fluid and powerful. And, it was just a neat thing to be around. And it just made you realize what a real Division I All-American type guy looks like and acts like and is. So that part of it was pretty neat.
Yeah, that's very cool. I'm sure an awesome experience. So what was it like, going to Florida Tech? That was your first Division II experience, yeah?
Correct. So in 2015, I had moved away from the Bulls school, and I'd actually done a pro team here in Jacksonville, a pro indoor team, and we did real well. We were 4-1 when the money drew up, and we weren't able to keep going, but I had a really good team put together, and I was kind of the GM and kind of the coach and put it all together. And Chris Milo gave me that opportunity. He was a local guy here, and we did real well, but it just didn't work out for long term. And so after that, I got back into coaching high school at the Bulls school. I kind of left that part out, but 2 years at the Bulls school, and the high school thing was not exactly what I wanted, and it didn't work out there. So as I moved on, I had an opportunity to go down to Florida Tech as an offensive coordinator, and I knew the only way I was going to get back into coaching was to do it in a different way. It wasn't going to be go be a grad assistant, go be a first, a second, and all that. It was too late for that side of things, in my opinion. So, I was after my 40s, and I'm still dreaming, and I still wanted it, and I'd never been an NCAA coach. So I decided, I'm going to go down there for free. And I Coach King, who's my assistant defensive coordinator now and teammate from UMBC, he said, "Hey, I got a room in the back of my house. You can stay there and come down and coach. We need an offensive coordinator this year." So I went down. We had a great year, like I said earlier, and that was a cool experience, man. We had some JUCO guys come in that year, and we had, some guys they had recruited in that were pretty good. And so some things started to add up for Florida Tech that year, and we went 12-4. It was awesome. And that kind of, that lit the candle. I felt like I could do it again. I felt like I was normal. I felt like it was natural again. I just felt like I needed to pursue my dream. And so when Flagler gave me this opportunity as a student coach, it was a hard thing to say yes to, James. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. Like, it was a very hard thing to say yes to because I just wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Here we are. I think this is 9 years later. I think this is ninth year later. And, we're playing against some pretty good teams, and we're going out and competing, and, not saying we're great yet, but we're a team that I think if you don't show up to play us, you might get shocked. And so that's kind of who we want to be this year. We just want to show up and play. And
absolutely.
So far the boys are doing that. So,
yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought that up. So, I mean, you've essentially been at Flagler 9 years or so, right? And a handful of years with an office, a few years without one, right?
More
without. I know most people look at us as a brand new program, year 3, but there was so much that went on in the years prior. And, I know this is a little tough for me because I know independently, right? Like, I know your story pretty well, and I know the hurdles you faced and all this. And one thing I'm trying to do with whatever this is here is talk about, that commitment and sacrifice you have to make if you really want to, take a non-traditional route to become a coach. Our stories are similar, not the same, but that you kind of figure out like, this might be what I want to do for the rest of my life. And didn't have that opportunity to go grad assistant and move up. You only have a couple of years after college to really figure that all out, right? Because you got to start making some money. So, you come to Flagler, and I know it was really hard to, not be an NCAA program. It's a student club, right? So like, salary's not massive by any means. You might not have made any money at all from it. Having coached a club before myself, they took care of me pretty well for an MCLA program, but you can't live off that, right? And so like, how did you kind of, once you decided, okay, there's something here and I want to do it, how did you kind of like, not come to terms with it all, but how did you navigate that part of your life? I mean, it's tremendously difficult.
Well, again, I had I married a lady that she believed in what I was doing. It's funny, the first time maybe the second or third time that we went on a date, the first one was the San Francisco 49ers and the Baltimore Ravens Super Bowl. And she was a 49er. She's from California, and I was a Raven. So that was cool. We won.
I didn't know this.
That gave me the heads up right away. I was one up on her from day one. So that was a good win for me. And I'm joking when I say that. But anyway, so we had a good night. We decided to do it again, and I think it was the third time that I had hung out with her. We had started the big event down in Jacksonville where, Georgetown had come in, Navy had come in, a couple years in a row. And so this was like the third year of that event down at the big stadium in Jacksonville. And so I took her down there, and, we were sitting inside and just, having a beer and kind of talking, getting to know each other. And kid after kid and parent after parent would just stop by the table, and they were just saying, "Hey, Coach Duncan, hey, Coach Duncan." And like, it just went on and on and on and on. And she finally just looked at me and she goes, "Who are you?"
Right.
And so she knew I was a coach from day one, is my point. And she knew what I was doing in the community, and she really backed what my beliefs were and what I was trying to accomplish. So she kind of was the backbone, of me, I guess having the endurance, the ability to do this. And so I credit her, because for me, I had to have a backing like her because this thing wasn't paid in a way that I could do this without her in some ways. I was able to hustle enough to continue to be a 50-50 partner with my wife, because they were able to give me a stipend here, and I was able to get it to a point where it took care of bills. And then I did the rest just by getting out in the community and trying to give away my time and energy. And certain people would have me run a clinic or a camp, or so it all worked out. People really backed me during some times that were tough. And like I said, I think that's the reason that this program is where it is as early as it is because of the support that has come from the people that I reached out to and tried to help without knowing this was the end result. I didn't know whether I was coming to Flagler when I was out in the community helping everybody, prior to taking even the student club job. So
Sure.
I don't know. I think it's all about what you give to life and then, I think you also got to have a little bit of luck, and I think luck's created by work, and so I don't think luck's real. I think luck's created, and I feel like that's how this program really got started, was a little dose of luck and a whole bunch of hard work and a vision. I think a vision was the biggest part.
No doubt. Yeah, it's been cool to watch and hear about those years before me and everything that went into it. It's special to be a part of, for sure. So you come to the student club at Flagler, and then I'm guessing you had to interview for like the NCAA job, right?
Yeah, they brought me in and interviewed, and I'm pretty sure that I was the only interview, but I don't know that to be a fact. But I did get offered the job, and I told him I was going to do a good job at it, and I told him that I would try to get support to the program through the community that we had built up over the years, and that's happened as well. The community's been very big to getting us where we are and having a field, and just having the program where it is today has been done through a lot of support from the community and from the school. The school's stepped up and taken some big chances on putting this program together to run the right way as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, St. Augustine's not a huge town. And it's definitely St. Johns County is a non-traditional lacrosse area, right? I mean, it's not like launching a program in Maryland or New York or wherever, these hotbed areas where kids are already playing. I mean,
that's a good point right there. I mean, that's part of our, situation is trying to get people on campus and getting them to take the visit. And, when, that it's a commitment for them to have to fly here and get here to see what our paradise really is. And it is paradise. We enjoy living here, and it's a good living. It's a laid back living style. It's, I'm from Baltimore, where it's, 100 miles an hour a lot of the time. And, I enjoy this environment that's down here. We got a beach 4 miles away. We got a beautiful campus that you get to walk around and be a part of. And there's a lot of history here in this town, being the oldest city in the nation. We always talk about being, come and play in the oldest sport in the nation and the oldest city in the nation. And we might be the only school that can make that claim, which is a pretty neat, situation for our team to have as a recruiting marketing, tool. I mean, you always look for your little catches that you can find in order to grab people's attention and get them to call you and come down and visit. So that's a pretty neat one for us.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just get on campus, just come here and we can talk. Right. And fortunately our town does a lot of the work for us. No, that's awesome. All right. So for some of our guys at Flagler who are graduating here soon, and, a few lately have expressed the interest in coaching, what sort of advice would you give to that college senior that's thinking about it? They're thinking about going into coaching, or maybe that's their dream job. They want to go be a a big D1 coach one day, what would you tell those guys to do first thing?
Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tell them the reality of coaching. Coaching's a scary adventure. It's a job that has not a lot of security. There's not a lot of big contracts that are long term. Lacrosse is moving in that direction, which is a positive for lacrosse coaches. So I warn them a little bit up front because it can be a very rocky road if you're not Jim Berkman, and if you're not Corrigan, and if you're not like guys that have been at places for 10, 15, 20 years. There's a little bit of rocky road to this profession. So I warn them, first of all. I let them know what the bad side is first. You can't always be roses, right? So I tell them that up front, and then I tell them, my advice would be to find a grad assistant position where you can get your grad school paid for, maybe get a room on campus, get a year of coaching under your belt, no matter where that place would be. It's better if you can find a good quality coach that's been in the environment longer, that has connections to help you get the next job. That is the best way to go in with a grad assistant, but any grad assistant to get your education paid for, get your master's behind your name, I think gives you it gives you an advantage in your interviews in the future to other positions. So I think that's probably the best advice you can give a guy coming right out of school is get that master's as soon as possible, because coaches, it's kind of one of the prerequisites to get it. I took a different route. I don't have a master's, but I probably have a master's in life because of the things that I've had to overcome in order to be in this position. So, but yeah, so I feel like that's probably the best advice. Get your master's degree, get into a staff, and then look for step 2 after that. And that is go try to find a paid position at the second level and work yourself into a position. Maybe go and be a operations, right? Operations is another route to getting into programs to start earning credibility with coaches that you might be around, and then they can help you, maybe find that next position.
Yeah, that director of lacrosse ops role, that started to become more common the last, 10 years or so. It's been pretty cool to see. I know a handful of guys who have gone to go be, a dolo somewhere, and then next thing you know, they're on a staff. And I was an MCLA alum, and a lot of us, we all want to coach, and it's a little weird, right? Even with as talented as the MCLA is, and the top tier teams in the MCLA they're as good as anybody. It's just a little different, and it's hard to just go from there and jump on as a GA somewhere. So you kind of got to either got to know someone or you got to go grind, and you usually have to do both. But it's cool to see that, like I said, a handful of my MCLA buddies gone on to be a director of lacrosse ops somewhere, just get that chance. Okay, so what's next? What's going on with Flagler? What's on the horizon? I know you said you're heading back up to Maryland here in about a month for the anniversary at Essex. But what you got going on?
We got a big game tomorrow against number 19 St. Leo on the road. Then we take off for spring break next week, and we head up to Barton up in North Carolina, and another road game. We'll come back on Tuesday night late and give the boys off Wednesday, get a nice practice in Thursday, head back up north to Limestone on Saturday, which is the number 3 team in the country, and we'll have our hands full with that one. And they're well coached, they're talented, they're big, they're strong, they're fast. That'll be a fun one. So we'll get a chance to go up there and compete with another top 5 team. That'll be the 3rd top 5 team we've played this year. And, I think we've showed up and played a little bit with the first 2. So I don't expect anything different. We'll come up there ready to play. So that'll be a good next week. And then, after that, we get Colorado Mesa, at home on a Thursday night. And then we get to take some, the 10 days or so. And then we get our senior day against UAH. And then we get to go up to Lander and who was conference champs last year. We lost to in that championship game, and we get to go up there again and try our luck at them and, keep moving along. We're off that following weekend when I get to go up to Baltimore and see my guys from Essex. And then, we come back and we go to Shorter on a road trip. And then we have Montevello here at home at the end. So it's a pretty good schedule to end up the year with. And, it's been very positive so far this year. We got a lot of work to do this next week. It's a big week. So, I feel good about what the team's doing. I feel good about where we are this year. And I'm excited about this next week and see kind of what happens.
Heck yeah. No, fired up. It's, kudos to you for scheduling from day one. Tough for this program. By this time next week, we will have played number 2, number 3, number 4. I'm sure some other folks. And that's been consistent, right? Year after year here. And that's ambitious with a newer program. And I think it's paying off. There's at this level, there's no such thing as a bad loss when you're playing a top 5 team, right? You're learning a lesson, or you're, God willing, sneak out a W. So this is pretty cool. What about, are we going to Widespread Panic after Mesa that weekend?
I mean, I hope you got me a ticket. I'm just kidding.
I'm gonna have to hop on SeatGeek here.
We'll love to go to a little Widespread. That's a fun concert.
Second time in the first 3 years where we have had Mesa scheduled, I think on a Thursday, ahead of a 3-day panic run here at St. Augustine Amphitheater. And I don't know if you know anyone with the band or what's going on, but man, good work. I'm grateful for it. Those should be fun. Another nice thing about coming here, right? You get some great music right down the road.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. It's one of the nicer amphitheaters on the East Coast.
100%. All right, Coach. I appreciate you. I will say thank you for this opportunity. Last 3-4 years have been phenomenal since I came back to Florida. I have learned so much from you every single day. I appreciate you. You've become one of my best friends, and I love working for you. You're a fantastic role model, and our guys know how lucky they are, but I really hope they remember what it's like to have a leader like you, because this has been even if I've been a fly on the wall the last 3 years, this has been pretty cool. And then thanks for helping me get this going. This is a big one. So just grateful for you. Appreciate everything you've done, and keep up the great work. Of all the people I've known in this game, you're probably the one that's just so due for some greatness and some peace. And I hope all that's coming to you and selfishly to me as well here over the next few years.
Well, we'll just keep on trucking, James. That's
yes,
all
sir.
we can do, man.
Put your head down and get to work, right?
That's right.
Awesome.
And thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. And I'm glad I got to tell the story a little bit. And it's a lot of things that you do in a venture like this that a lot of people don't know. And you don't want to go out selling out your story to anybody and everybody, but when you get asked like this in this forum, I think it's a fair story to tell. So thank you. For sure.
Well, you have a good one, Coach, and I appreciate you. Thanks so much, and I'll see you tomorrow morning at the bus, 9 a.m.
There you go. See you then,
cool.
buddy. See you.
Take care, Dunk.
Thank you.
Well, that's it for episode 1 of the LaxJobs Podcast. Big thank you to Coach Brian Duncan from Flagler College for hopping on and helping us get this thing off the ground. I hope you all enjoyed hearing Coach Duncan's story and how he got to where he is today. I guess we'll be back here soon with episode number 2. Date and time TBD, but we'll let you know. Be sure you're following us on social media. Essentially everywhere. We're at LaxJobs_ on Twitter, Instagram, so on and so forth. Starting up a YouTube page as well, so you can check us out there. But go ahead, subscribe to the podcast, and we'll be in touch soon. Thanks so much for listening.